And
let's go ahead and start the meeting, and then I can explain the technical difficulties and issues on that.
Is there a way to go to that camera or no?
I think that camera is on, it's just not.
You could just view. Brittany's interested.
You can just go like in the Zoom world gallery or
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, I'd like to call to order this meeting for the Salem City Council Rules Committee for January 15th, 2025.
Six.
Whoops. Correction. I'm Julie Hoy.
Shane Matthews.
Deanna Gwen.
And is Vanessa Nordyke on the way?
I'm not sure. I haven't got a response yet, but we have a quorum, so we can go ahead and start the meeting.
Great.
If I can just make a quick announcement, typically we broadcast our meetings on YouTube. However, there's some technical difficulties, so we're not able to do that. We are recording the meeting, and the recording will be posted on the website. I also wanted to note that Councilor Nishioka is one of our guests today. She's attending as a member of the public and a city councilor. She's not part of the. She's not on the rules committee team. So we've got a couple of topics I'd like to discuss with the committee today. The number one topic and other topics relating to it are decorum at city council meetings. As you're probably painfully aware, we've had some rough meetings over the past year with some boisterous crowds and some disruptive behavior. I think the last several meetings that as we've made some practice changes has really helped. I appreciate the mayor's leadership on that and her measured use of the kill switch. That said, I think we're probably in store for more interesting meetings in the future. I think it's inevitable in any public body, so I'd like to kind of discuss that as far as how the council can participate in keeping decorum in order, what the rules are, and how we might want to change those rules to give us better control over the meetings. There's also a series of other topics that are in the rules with some proposed amendments, and we'll go over those as we get down the list. One of the things that we've done is we've tried to work on just some different behaviors that we can address to address disruptive behavior. As far as the rule for disruptive behavior, the folks have a right to attend public meetings. It's a freedom of association right. It's not just a statutory right, so it's constitutional in nature. So excluding someone from a meeting, prohibiting them from speaking if we've otherwise given them the right to speak can lead to constitutional trouble, so we can't have to do that. However, if someone causes an actual disruption of the meeting such that we can't conduct the meeting because of their behavior, we can take actions to keep them from doing that, including excluding them from that meeting, terminating their right for public comment, and excluding them from future meetings. It's all kind of a continuum. The more significant the violations, the greater authority we have to take action. Generally speaking, we have to give folks a warning first before we take any action that affects their rights. But obviously, if someone's making an actual threat, some sort of menacing behavior, we don't need to warn them first. We can have the police take immediate action. So some of the things we've been doing over the last couple of months to try to help with this is clearly announcing the rules for public speaking and the rules of the council meetings at the beginning of the meeting, so folks know what the rules are. We've been better about warning participants as soon as there's a rule violation, whether that's going over the time limit, using offensive language, addressing the crowd as opposed to the council, things like that. It's helpful if you interrupt that behavior as soon as possible by interrupting them and saying, sorry, you can't do that. Please don't do that again. If you do it again, your time to speak is going to be over. And that's been pretty effective. For some folks, I think as folks get more used to that sort of corrective behavior, they will adjust as well. So we need to be prepared for that. And probably the most important thing is to apply those rules equally. So it doesn't matter whether it's that really cute 10-year-old girl who wants to go overtime or the guy who wants to yell and scream at you. They've all got their 3 minutes. 3 minutes is it, and you gotta hit that kill switch. Otherwise, this isn't in the rules, but it's happened from time to time in the years past where someone reaches their time limit and someone on council really wants them to finish their 3 pages of comments, and they're saying, so the question the counselor will ask, when I can do this. Nothing when you ask, but to say, oh, can you finish what you're gonna say? Or can you finish, the rest of your testimony? And that's not a question, that's a way to evade the rule. So we appreciate folks not doing that. If someone's mid-sentence, give them a little grace if you can, but going on for an extra 2 minutes really violates the spirit of the rule and can lead to other folks wanting that same right.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Sorry. Does interpretation kind of play any role in this? Like, obviously, if you have to have an interpreter, the whole process slows down. So your 3 minutes and there's less value.
Yeah.
Like, does that increase your?
Yeah, I think it's not written into the rules, but I think we should make accommodations for that. Certainly for a language barrier where there's an interpreter, I think that's just a reasonable thing to do.
Okay.
If there's a disability at play where it's mandatory that we do a reasonable accommodation, and giving folks more time is part of that.
Okay, so we're able to kind of adjust to the individuals.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, Dan, would you recommend that be stated for the record as part of the overtime? Like,
I think it would be helpful if we've got someone who's coming up with an interpreter that, you can try to catch that obviously at the beginning, and then the mayor can say, okay, we're going to give them 6 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it might be.
I have a good question.
Mhm.
Is this recording audio or visual as well?
Tammy, are we doing a video recording?
we're doing.
My understanding is when you push record, it does both.
Okay, just want to make sure because they wouldn't know you were Courtney, not Bush.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So for the record, just to introduce staff, Dan Atchison, city attorney.
Krishna Moody, city manager, Courtney Knox Bush.
Great, thank you. So other ways to interrupt or stop the disruptive behavior is just in the speaker's time. So if you warn them and they keep doing that violation, whether that's offensive language or other things, you just say, I'm sorry, your time's done. We don't have that clearly in the rule. It's sort of a discretionary thing that mayors past have done, and we've talked about before, but I think it would be good to have that clear authority for the mayor in the rule, so we don't have to do a council vote in the middle of someone's testimony to end their testimony.
Right.
Overwrought there at that point. The other thing that we've talked about before is just to suspend public comment period. So if we're in the middle of public comment and you've got a large gaggle of folks who are acting out and causing actual disruption, so we can't call the next speaker because they're chanting or cheering, singing, whatever it might be. In the past, I think Courtney and I talked about this, where Mayor Bennett would take a pretty strict tone and say, look, if you guys don't knock that off, we're just not going to do public comment tonight. It was usually pretty effective. He had no authority to do that, so I just sat there like, okay. But it worked, but it's something if we want to have the mayor to have that authority. And again, I don't want a council vote to do it. I think it would be helpful in those rare circumstances where the mayor could say that and actually have the authority to do it. The way I would propose to do it is the mayor can say we're going to do that, and that's what will happen, unless council then votes to say no, we want to keep public comment going.
Yeah, and we have legal authority to be able to cancel public comment like that.
Yes, but the circumstances we need to spell out specifically. So it has to be an actual disruption and it has to be repeated. So if someone violates the rules and there's a loud chanting and they won't stop, we need to warn them first and they say, okay, look, we warned you. If this continues, we're going to cancel public comment.
Gotcha. Okay.
Whether that's effective or not, I don't really know. It might cause folks to get more upset and say, fine, if you're not going to let us do public comment, we're just going to keep chanting. And then we're in a situation where we've got to adjourn the meeting or do a more extreme action to exclude them from the meeting, which is something we really don't want to do if we don't have to.
It still seems like a logical step. Like that whole process sounds very logical. So.
Again, I think it's something it's almost a last resort. And if we say we're going to do it, we better do it. We better not threaten it and not do it, because I know that doesn't work with my daughter.
Excuse me, Nan, can I ask one follow-up question? I actually do, sorry. we're talking about the presiding officer. So sometimes that role is, depending on which meeting we're in, it could be a different person.
Right, so under the rules, the mayor is the presiding officer, the mayor's president, not the council president. They're both absent. Bizarro rules say that the city attorney convenes the meeting and then the council elects a temporary council president and presiding officer.
And what we're discussing today, does that include all meetings, like even this one? If we had someone here who was disruptive?
We might want to say, just adopt these rules for all council committees. It wouldn't be the rules for the boards and commissions. They have their own set of rules that we can do. This might be appropriate for them. I don't want to impose that on them necessarily.
Right.
But right now, no. You can by analogy say, well, at council, we do this and this is what we're going to do. We don't have any set rules, for these sorts of meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, I also recall hearing some experience from other jurisdictions. I feel like the school district may have done this at one time or another, and maybe there are other cities with experience. Do you have any information about that, or how?
Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, I don't remember all the details, but I'm just curious about whether or how there is experience that these practices would be informed by, right? I mean, there's the law, but then there's also experience of other jurisdictions that we could benefit from. And I remember it was around COVID, I think. So my memory's really foggy. Do you have any?
I don't.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so another thing that we can do is recess the meeting. So if we've got a boisterous crowd, as opposed to trying to exclude everyone, just take a pause on the meeting. Give us 5 minutes. We can have staff talk to the group and say, look, if you want to convey your message, this might not be the best way of doing it, and try to get them to conform their behavior. And then lastly, for repeated violations or more serious violations, such as, physical threats, things like that, you can remove a person. And that's a significant, infringement on their liberty, and often involves putting hands on someone. You talk to the police officers for a variety of criminal violations, and they're like, this is a serious thing that we're going to do. If we're going to arrest someone, we may have to use force. That can escalate very quickly. Is the liberty interest, that the city's interest in conducting a calm meeting, important enough for us to put hands on someone? And in a variety of contexts, it isn't. We'll say we'll deal with it later. And so I'm not saying we're never going to exclude someone or trespass them from the meeting, but we need to be very careful in applying that. That makes sense?
I have another question.
Yes.
Is because anyone who's going to put hands on somebody would have to be law enforcement,
Correct.
I assume. Are they being given our direction or our parameters?
The way it works in the rules is you are in charge, the mayor, the presiding officer, is in charge of enforcing decorum. The city manager or the city manager's designee is the sergeant in arms, who gets to, you tell the sergeant in arms what to do, and the sergeant in arms has to do it. And so I don't expect the city manager to physically arrest someone, so they would direct the police officers to do it.
Oh.
But that's how the authority would work, is that the mayor's presiding officer would say, okay, I've given this person numerous warnings, there's an actual disruption, they won't stop. Hopefully you're conferring with the city manager and the city attorney before you say, I want this person excluded. You direct the city manager to do it, the city manager directs the police officers, and that's what we're at.
Okay, and they know what our protocols are. So if they watch something devolve, they know what's coming.
Yes, and we actually have asked folks to leave the meeting before, and several years ago, and the police are pretty attuned to that. As we adjust these rules, and talk to the patrol division and say, okay, this is what our rules are now, this is what we might be doing in the future, so let's be prepared for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so on page 4 of your staff report, we talk about proposed rule and practice changes related to decorum. We have a rule on the books right now that allows 30 minutes for public comment at the beginning of the meeting And those are for items that are on the agenda, other than hearings, and then 30 minutes at the end of the meeting for other than agenda items. We have not consistently or frequently observed the 30-minute rule. I'm suggesting that council may want to make that the actual rule the default, so we'll have a 30-minute period, and I'd like this group to talk about whether 30 minutes is a sufficient amount of time. That would be the default. So at 30 minutes or whatever that time is, we stop. And then if council wants more public testimony, you can suspend the rules by a 2/3 vote of members present, and you can add more time to public comment. The practicality is if you've got, 50, 60, 70 people in the audience who want to speak to council, if we're giving them 3 minutes, that's max 10 people. And frankly, it's probably not that much to get within 30 minutes, given the timing of things. So 30 minutes probably isn't adequate. But if you've got that many people in the audience that want to speak, I'm not sure that we want to say, no, we're not going to allow the rest of these folks to speak. We're only going to let 10, we're only going to let 15 up. So there's going to be circumstances where council's going to be like, yeah, we're going to waive this rule. That might be the first order of business after you do roll call and pledge of allegiance is we've got a bunch of people in the audience who want to talk to council about X issue. Let's amend the rule right now. We're going to add another 30 minutes or whatever it might be. But I think we should, if we're going to have the rule on the books, we should either get rid of it or we should apply it. And we may want to look at, is 30 minutes adequate? And how do we want to address adding time to it? So like I said, so 30 minutes, 3 minutes per person, that's 10 people. If you've got 12, 13, 14 people, frankly, as I said, even 10 is probably 30 minutes isn't enough to get through 10 even. So I don't think 30 minutes is really what we want to shoot for. If you're interested in we can do status quo, just keep the rule on the books, keep it in our back pocket. Or if you want to use what I'm saying is make it that the default and then amend as we want more time. That's what I would recommend. And if you want to keep it at 30 minutes to try it out, see how it goes, that's fine too. Or we could amend the rule to say, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever it might be.
So one of the things that I think what we have been working on is a consistency, right? So I don't think it is a good idea just to kind of take this rule out of the back pocket and say we're going to enforce it today, when people are not even aware that it exists. I like, Dan's recommendation about I think we should enforce it and then extend. That kind of gives at least some kind of a discipline to understand that the public comment does take time. Hopefully, majority of the time we can extend it, but based on what is on the agenda for that night, you might not be able to extend beyond a certain time. So I just want to say consistency is important. It's difficult. Personally, I did not know about the 30-minute rule until we said, oh, it exists, right? But I think we should make it transparent to the community that there is a 30-minute rule. If that's what it is, let's enforce it and then extend the time. But anyway, my point is on the consistency.
What's the most amount of people we've had testify? Like 65 or something? I remember.
I wouldn't say that in minute, probably closer to 50. And we've had 6 sheets of signups and 5, about 10 a sheet thereabouts, maybe 60.
3 hours it took for public testimony once.
At least once.
At least once.
And if you got that many folks in the audience, this is a council consideration. You want to say no, we're not going to listen to you. That's what it is, and that's a big lift.
It's also, people adapt usually to what the expectation is, and if we go beyond 20 people, it's important to submit written testimony because we will get all of that, but we just don't have the time to do it.
There's also a couple other techniques that are in the rule. One is to limit the amount of time per speaker. If we've got 30 people signed up, instead of 3 minutes, you get 2 minutes, or you get 1 minute per person, so we can get through everyone. In the budget committee rules, because I was looking at that last night, the chair of the budget committee can, if there's a group coming, and again, they have to be an organized group, and just random bunch of people waiting on the same topic. But if they have a group, they have a representative, and the representative can speak on behalf of the group. But it also says if other members of the group want to talk, they get 3 minutes,
So it does not.
Okay. But in other contexts, some governing bodies have said, okay, we've got a bunch of people in the audience, we're not going to be able to get through all of you. A show of hands for everyone who's opposed to whatever the issue is. That would be wholly unsatisfactory for most of the folks who came down to talk to you. But my position, I guess, is that this is a meeting of the governing body to conduct business. It's not necessarily a town hall. I think public comment and public testimony at hearings is important, and we need to allow it. That said, you still have business to get through, and making decisions at 9:55 at night, spending millions of dollars as part of those decisions is probably not the best way to run a railroad.
I have a lot of concern about limiting it down to 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it is. I just have a lot of concern about limiting it and then offering the ability for council to be able to overturn that by a 2/3 vote, because for the same reason that it seems, we're concerned about leaving it on the books and then enforcing it when we want to. That's why we want to have it be the forefront of the rule. It's the same thing that the second that a 2/3 vote doesn't happen, then we've unequally enforced that rule. I feel like, because we've unequally been willing to waive that rule. And so if the expectation is that every time you end up waiving it, then why even have the rule in the first place? If the expectation is that you're always going to hold true to it, then don't even give us the option to waive it. And so I think that's my concern of the way that they drafted right now, is that we end up at a different pickle, but it's the same pickle.
There's probably a way around that, as I'm thinking, but the council rules do provide that you can suspend the rules with the 2/3 vote. So no rule is 100% enforceable all the time. I'm thinking what if we put a provision in that says that this rule can't be suspended? You can only delete it or amend it, right? That might work.
Well, I'm not saying that's the right path either. I mean, I think I'm more leaning towards not having a limit. Generally, there's probably more where I'm leaning, just that way. I mean, I know it creates the long meetings. I know there's a downside to it. We've all experienced it. It's not an every meeting thing. If it becomes an every meeting thing, I think that would be more concerning for me.
It sure feels like every meeting.
I guess I need to time it more to know how often we're going this far past. But yeah, I don't know. I have some reservation about putting guardrails around it too much that make it where it could possibly cause us bigger problem in the future when we don't suspend that rule. I actually like the idea of if we hit X amount of comment, then we reduce the time for everyone, so everyone still gets an opportunity. But if we have over 15 people that sign up, your 3 minutes go down to 2 for everyone. Or if we have over 30, your 2 minutes go down to 1. I like that everybody still gets the opportunity. You just may have lesser opportunity. I don't want it to be a thing where the first 15 people that front load the audience end up getting their speak time because they front loaded and they got there early enough. That's the other thing I don't want to have, is like you end up front loading the people that have the time to show up however early they need to make sure they're one of the first few that get to speak in the event we don't suspend them. So that would be my concern.
Okay. Councilor Gwynn or Mayor Hoy?
I'm thinking about, to Courtney's point, other jurisdictions. I have people, fellow mayors and such, reaching out to me and going, what the heck are you doing? Why are you allowing this? You don't have to subject yourself to that, or your council. And that's like, okay, what am I not asking for? What should the parameters be? And I think 30 minutes is not enough. I think an hour is a little more reasonable. My hope is it'd be 10 minutes, but that's probably not likely, especially with the topics that are in our midst for the last year and probably moving forward for a bit. There's going to be more passion about that. Maybe a limit, if there were to be a limit, an hour, and reduce the amount of time. The only problem I have with reducing the amount of time is having had to prepare 3 minutes or 2 minutes, and then suddenly realizing you have 1. is hard. Because you then have to edit yourself quickly to make sure you hit the high points of what you prepared. So I'm not sure, just talking out loud so far.
I struggle with limiting, but because we do talk so much about transparency and wanting people to be involved, so I struggle with that limiting, how long we'll. Although I'm tired today too from, yeah, from a late night, so. Yeah.
It's kind of a lot.
Did you have the other? You mentioned a time limitation. Do you is that here too? Or is that, would that be?
For a speaker,
Yeah,
that's already in the rule.
it's already in the rule. Does it
It
have,
just says that the mayor and limit the
so
amount of time for each speaker,
it's based on it.
if there's multiple signed up.
I don't know, I would hesitate to. I mean, I suppose maybe it was 60 minutes, then once we hit the 60-minute. I don't know, I mean, I guess it's still the same problem.
I'm not looking for final recommendations from the committee today, and we do have some other topics to get through. Why don't we, if it's okay with the committee, we can move on to some other topics and come back to that if we have time. As I talked about before, another rule change would allow the mayor to suspend public comment if participants cause an actual disruption. Again, this is if folks are chanting or shouting and not allowing us to call the next speaker, not allowing us to conduct the rest of the meeting. The mayor could just say, okay, we're not doing public comment tonight, we're done.
I think that's fair.
Mhm.
If the disruption gets to a level where the meeting just really is too hard to continue, then yeah, that makes sense.
So right now, there's provision in the rules that allows council or allows the presiding officer and sergeant at arms to remove a person. The language is pretty dated, and I looked around to other jurisdictions, and the city of Portland had a good rule on that. And they've been through wars, they've had this happen a number of times, they've gone through court cases and updated their rule. And so I pretty much, upon their entire rule, changed the name to protect the innocent and changed a few things to conform to our practices. And so Rule 8.1 in the council rules is a new one. It basically allows removal of a person after they've been warned for repeated behavior that causes an actual disruption. Again, an actual disruption can be any number of things, but it's got to be something beyond just a single curse word or a single instance of someone shouting out during a meeting. It's got to be warned, and it's got to be to such an extent that we can't move on with the meeting. The person is standing up and screams at the top of their lungs and won't be quiet. After warning, we can remove that person. If the person has a snide comment or something to make and then they're quiet, we're not really disrupted, we can move on. If you keep doing it every 5 minutes, then it becomes a different story. So it's a little subjective, which isn't good when you're talking about constitutional rights, but it'll be something that is recurring and consistent that prohibits us from conducting meetings.
I found myself wondering about consistent behaviors, like not maybe within one meeting, but meeting after meeting after meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Does that compile in that way, or?
Probably not something that would allow us to exclude them. We can, I know the kind of conduct you're talking about. It's something that we can have a discussion with that person about. But I would be very leery of our authority to say this person is banned for public meetings for 30 days unless they say no. That would be the next move, right? I don't think we would survive a court case on that one if we had to go there.
Right.
Interesting. Our rules don't prohibit profanity. That's actually been a conscious choice on our part. It doesn't necessarily allow it, it just doesn't prohibit it. However, as I learned from a few meetings ago, we can be subject, and CT Media can be subject to FCC penalties for allowing that to happen on a broadcast. So I'm comfortable now, prohibiting profanity in public testimony, and obviously if someone's just using profanity in the room, shouting things out, that would apply too. I looked at the FCC's guidelines as far as what constitutes profanity, and George Carlin's list is not there. They have a very ambiguous definition that basically says language that constitutes a public, that's so offensive that it constitutes a public nuisance. Okay. I suppose it's like art, you know it when you hear it. So I think we need to be careful as far as excluding folks on that. I think darn and heck are okay. Things beyond that also 4 letters, probably not acceptable.
Could you give me some examples?
I cannot. We can talk after that.
Yeah.
So it refers to the FCC guidance, and the FCC guidance is pretty ambiguous, which doesn't give me a good feeling inside, but I think it's important that we do it. And frankly, I think it's pretty apparent when it's been happening in meetings and what's acceptable and what isn't.
So your suggestion is to add a profanity
Yeah.
prohibition. Yeah, that makes sense, especially since there's a financial guideline or financial penalty for it. So.
What are we doing on time? We got about 20 minutes. So this has previously been discussed by council, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but the council liaison process, Moss Adams came up with a framework for that. So that framework that council's already reviewed and adopted is going to be put into the council rules. Under the framework, not all boards and commissions will necessarily have a liaison. The process for determining whether a liaison is selected would either come as a request from that board or commission or as a motion that a councilor would bring. Some of the considerations is, does any member of council want to be the liaison for that particular board or commission? Do they have the capacity to do it? Do they have the time to do it? Can they make the schedules work? And things like that. It's like, as far as when you might consider appointing a liaison, is the subject matter of that board or commission particularly complex, or is their scope really broad where they really touch upon a lot of areas of council goals and priorities? Those sorts of boards and commissions might be more appropriate for a liaison. A narrow board or commission, as an example, I'll just use the West Salem Urban Renewal Advisory Board. It's pretty narrow, right? It's one particular geographic area. There's not a lot there. There's only 1 or 2 counselors for that particular one that would be particularly appropriate for that one anyway. And they're probably already involved to the extent they want to be. So for that one, probably not a good candidate for liaison. Something like SPRAD is much more broad. It's got a lot of impact on the community. That might be more appropriate. Library board, another one that has a lot of impact on the community, although its scope is pretty narrow. It gets a lot of people interested. That might be something that deserves liaison. And so it would be a council appointment of a council member. And again, it's kind of based on that council member's capacity. They could say, no, I don't want to do that, or I really want to. This next one, Rule 5J, Councilor Mayor motions, there isn't much of an amendment there, but I wanted to talk to the committee about how we interpret it. So there's been a little controversy from members of the public about a motion that Councilor Matthews made regarding purchasing. Folks are upset because that quote wasn't on the agenda. And I, in full disclosure for everyone, Councilor Matthews asked me beforehand, should I wait on this one or should I bring it, at this meeting? And I said, yeah, go ahead and bring it. In retrospect, I probably didn't make the right call. It probably would have been better to wait just so all the members of council had seen it beforehand. My thinking was it was an information item. If you recall, there's an information item regarding purchasing on the agenda. I thought, well, it's on the agenda. This amendment about purchasing shouldn't come as a big surprise. I don't think it did necessarily, but I think to be consistent with the rule, it's got to be an item of new business, and we're going to define new business in the rule to mean something that's not on the agenda, and that's something that an information report doesn't count. So if there's an information report about the city manager's compensation, you can't just make a motion to increase the city manager's compensation. Sorry. But, if it's a whole new item, it's gonna be the general consideration, is this gonna be a surprise to folks to see this on the agenda? If it is, it's gotta be submitted by 9 AM Tuesday. And for folks of you who have talked to me about bringing motions, my general advice to you is the sentence motion has to be submitted to me or the city manager by 9 AM Tuesday, and you're good. The rest of the discussion, we've got a little more time to work with. If you want to write, 3 paragraphs or 10 pages of discussion, that's great. We can get that in. Usually we publish the agenda Wednesday, Thursday. So if you get it into us by then, we can incorporate that into the document and get that sent out to the rest of the agenda. The other part of that rule that folks don't think about a lot is that if it's not timely submitted, it can still be on the agenda. We'll put it out as an addition, it'll be added to the agenda, but by rule, council can't consider it at that meeting. You have to wait till the next regular meeting. Again, not to surprise people, force them into a decision. They get to wait a couple weeks to take action on it. So essentially the rule just defines new business, and I'll let you guys have weeks of time to review that rule before we meet again, and we can see what you think about that proposed rule. The next item is safety measures. We have been doing some research into having metal detectors at council meetings. Folks in the facilities and the legal office have researched that, put together a proposal for city staff to consider, the executive leadership team to consider. We're still working through that, but it's certainly feasible. We would need to adopt some policies to allow it. What it would do is we'd have 2 stanchion type metal detectors set up. Folks would come into the anteroom of chambers, for lack of a better term. They'd be subject to going through the metal detectors. They're required to do it, or they don't get entered. There are 2 different kinds of metal detectors. There's one that catches large metallic objects. The more modern one, so you don't have to take your keys out of your pocket and your cell phone and things like that. It catches bigger metal objects more likely to be dangerous weapons. So that's a lot more handy. That's a lot faster to get people in and out. If people go through that detector and something goes off, they have to go back through, take things out of their pockets, and then go back through again. If they go through again and they're still pinging because there's some sort of metal object, we would have security guards with wands who would, do the body screen sort of thing. And then, eventually we get to the point where they either can't enter or they get to enter, Some of the considerations for that is if someone does bring a weapon or something large and metallic that's valuable, what do we do with it? Our position is that they go get rid of it, however they want to get rid of it, and then they can come back and try again. We're not going to have a code check for weapons or other things at city council. The expense alone would be enormous. The liability would be enormous. And I don't want to handle people's valuables at a council meeting. So if we were to do this, we would have signs put up for several months at council meetings saying, hey, we're going to be doing this. Here's what the process is. Give people a chance to get used to the idea, and then we would implement it.
And you guys are looking into the expense?
The cost, the initial cost just for the equipment is about, I think it's 18,000.
From the airport.
The staffing, sorry about that. Staffing would be about 20,000 a year. That would be the time for 2 security guards to attend the metal detectors and do the pat down search.
And is the 18,000 for both units, or is it per?
It's one combined unit.
Because I thought you said
There are 2, but it's all considered one.
Gotcha.
18,000 is inclusive of those.
Is there, at most of our council meetings, we already have an officer, at least 1, sometimes 2 there. And then I know back when we had City Hall, there was usually also a security guard there that's traditionally just around the facility. Are they not certified to be able to do this?
We don't want them to do this because then it becomes a constitutional issue with police officers searching you versus a private security guard where this is an administrative process. So we don't want the officers involved in this. Obviously, they'll be on site. So if there's an incident related to that, they can respond to it. But we wouldn't have police manning this thing.
Gotcha. And the security guard that we currently had Because this is really not gonna happen while we're at library anyway, this is gonna happen once we get back to.
Yeah, we're thinking if that's possible to do it at LAUC, so it become an additional expense that we would talk to council about. Timing wise, I'm not sure how quickly we get the equipment and the policy in place, but you know, it's something we could look into and see how feasible it is to do.
But I mean, what I mean is the security guard that's there, are they DP?
DPS,
Are
I
they
say real fast and no one.
no one knows, you just.
So your question is when we move back to
Yeah,
City Hall.
yeah, the security guard that we already
Yeah.
hired for the building, well, they already have the certification because they're already at our meeting, or traditionally they had been. And so I guess I'm looking at expense, is it an additional expense or is it an expense we were already incurring because they were at our meeting anyway?
We no longer have that contract, so it would be a renewed expense plus an additional officer.
So when we go back to City Hall, we haven't made a decision about whether we're going to bring that security guard back or not
Okay,
in the budget, so. So depending on that, so this 21,000 is, yeah,
gotcha.
so that's still based on the budget needs and.
Do we know when the building's gonna be done?
We think it's gonna be done in February of 27, so we, what?
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, so we just hope that you all can give us a little bit more time to be so crowded on the stage in the budget committee process. It's only this budget committee process. Next year, we should be back in the other space, in the new space.
Yeah, the budget committee went pretty well last night. It was configured.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
That's, I guess, that looked like by ward.
Still tight.
I'm sorry, Mary.
Okay, great. So about $40,000 for staffing and equipment
For the first year and then about 20 plus 2025 subsequent years.
And we're only in this space till February 27, maybe. So would it be able to be implemented quickly or
We're still looking into that. I'm not sure how feasible that is.
what about, I didn't see any security last night. I didn't see any a police officer in the room or anything like that. Are we offering that for budget committee?
We had assistant chief dinner.
Oh, that's right.
We think he's
okay. Sure. Thanks. Was he sitting over there?
He was watching.
Okay, I couldn't see it.
I bumped into one.
Thanks.
The other thing that we've kind of informally enforced in the past is prohibiting sticks and poles, like things attached to signs, just because it can be poke someone's eye out and there's a weapon kind of thing. So we're just going to make that express in the rules to prohibit sticks and poles and things like that. Really quickly, Rule 18 for filling vacancies. I just wanted to kind of go over the appointment process. I'm not recommending any changes there. So the process has been the board, per rule, the Board of Commission Appointments Committee reviews all applications and forwards the applications to the mayor if it's a mayoral appointment, or to council if it's a council appointment. And Mayor, I need to talk to you about this because I gave Linda some bad advice a few months back where I didn't realize that mayoral appointments are supposed to go through the committee. I know in the past, a couple mayors ago, they weren't, and that's what I was recalling. And so I think I told her that, but I think all the mayoral appointments at least need to go through the committee. You're not obligated to follow the recommendation, but you do have to take those through the committee for that process.
Makes sense.
For council appointments, council decides that the applicants should be interviewed. So that came up maybe 2 years ago regarding some planning commission appointments. There's some past practices where we used to do a lot of interviews for planning commissioners. There's no requirement that we do interviews, but if council wants to interview an applicant or a recommended applicant, council's welcome to do that. It would be a motion and council will vote on that motion. The other piece of that too is that each member of council has a right to review all the applications, even the applications that aren't recommended by the boards and commissions appointments committee. The way that's happened in the past is we'll get a request from a member of council saying, hey, I heard Jim Smith applied for X committee. I don't see him on here because he wasn't recommended. You can provide that to the counselor, and we typically probably provide that to all council appointing counselors requesting to see that application.
And you would provide what?
A copy of that application
To all of council?
And so if someone says, I want to see all the applications for planning commission or whatever it might be, we'll provide this out. Background check. So at the prior meeting, council directed that all applicants for boards and commissions be subject to a background check. And those are on the same terms as employees and other volunteers. So staff will perform the checks on existing board members as well. Working through that with Gretchen and other staff and HR and risk. Right now, risk takes on the lion's share of managing the background check process. I did talk to folks at risk before that motion was even made, and they said it's not a big lift for them. They think they can do it fairly efficiently. Some of the things that Gretchen and I are working through is, how to get that information out to the applicants so they know they're going to be submitting to a background check, and what information do we need from them in order to perform that check. And then to make sure that, they're going to be providing us at least some, private confidential information. How do we keep that information confidential? The other question that I'll be talking to boards and commissions committee about is, how do we provide that information to the committee and then to council? If you've got a candidate who has some questionable criminal history, but they meet the requirements, and we decide to recommend them, we would want the committee to know that there's some criminal history there, but it's a public meeting, and I feel awkward, at least for the applicant, to be talking about someone's criminal history at a public meeting. But that's the rule. So we will be telling them before they apply, you're going to have to submit to a background check. And one thing we could do is we could have a conditional recommendation from the committee saying, okay, we like these 3 people, and then we run the background check. Kind of like we do with employees. We'll do the interview process, decide to make a conditional offer, and then the offer is conditional on their passing a background check. So they know it's coming. And they know what the criteria is, and if they opt to apply anyway, then that's kind of on them. But at least for employees and volunteers, that's not a public process. This is a public process, so it's a little sticky. I'm concerned that that requirement is going to chill folks applying for boards and commissions. But
Is it sticky like law or sticky like uncomfortable?
uncomfortable. And we'll be able to redact confidential information, social security number, things like that. But the criminal history is technically a public record. People can look it up if they want to, and so there's no legal reason to redact it. So we're working through that. When we talk to boards and commissions committee, we hopefully have a good plan of attack on how to address.
What I've never failed a background check. What is that? I mean, what pops up? Yeah.
It depends on what kind of background check it is. Criminal background check is going to look at criminal records relevant to where you live. So some of the information we'll gather is where this person has lived in the last 7 years or last 10 years or whatever it might be. And then we would run a background check on those states. Mm-hmm. So if I lived in California, Utah, Wyoming, and Oregon, we would check those jurisdictions.
Mm-hmm. And when we spoke about this some time ago, we thought maybe it would be a cost of about $5,000.
Right, based on approximately 100 applications a year at $35 to $65 an application. Risk and HR are looking at different vendors. There's a different option that's much cheaper, $7 an application. But it's also additional money for more jurisdictions. So the vast majority of our applicants are Oregon, some are Oregon, maybe Washington or whatever. There might be 3 or 4 that have a half a dozen jurisdictions. So for a few of them, it's going to cost more, but if we could get it down to 7 per, that would be great.
Is that the jurisdiction size? It's state size? It's not down the county or?
It's state. State.
Is there a way to modify the actual application to have an application be specific to, instead of having one per, like Joe Smith apply for 5 different boards, like have a specific application for, the library or SCRAB or whatever?
The way it works now is that there's separate questions for each board and commission. So there's general questions. And then if someone selects planning commission, HLC, HRC, whatever, there'll be additional questions for each of them. And the way it comes to you is a garbled mess. And I've seen those applications forms that have been filled out and they're largely unintelligible. And you're like, why do I care if he's a botanist and he's applying for CPRV, you know? Yes is the answer to the question. We are updating our software to a new tool called eScribe. We're hoping
It
to,
seems like Google Forms would do a better job than what we have right now.
no, I don't disagree, but it's the tool we have. It's limited, and there's probably not a whole lot we can do with it now. We've already added additional questions in responding to council's desire for more fulsome information about applicants. But that level of specification probably can't do with this one.
How long will it be before we have the new?
July-ish.
Okay. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And
Not
hopefully,
because of that.
and I'm not promising that this new tool will solve all of our ills, but it should help.
So who makes these applications? Where does that happen? IT somewhere?
It's through Legistar, the same tool we use for the council agendas. There's a module that they have for boards and commissions, and it helps us manage that process a little bit. And the application is a form through that.
That's an outdated system.
Always.
You should have seen how it was before. So nice and bearskins. So that's all the agenda items I have for today. And again, I'm not looking for any specific recommendations or decisions. If the board has any direction you'd like to provide, please let me know and I can work on that and we'll get a meeting scheduled for next month.
Direction on these specific items, you mean?
Or if there's items I didn't mention, you can take a look at.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I need just more time to consider or more time to learn about is the council and mayor motion section about what would qualify and what wouldn't. Because I think my initial reaction is I still feel like if information reports are about something, you should be able to bring the motion forward. So, so I think I personally just need more time to like research what that new business title covers. And then I'm not personally really prepared to do the 2 or the 13 limitation or whatever that might be. Maybe in the future, I
appreciate that.
Everything else is fine.
And again, I understand folks probably don't have time to even look at the proposed changes. So, eventually get to the point where we go line by line and say, how does this look?
I would be in favor of, other jurisdictions and what they're doing and how it works. I really do think that we are a very fair group who wants everyone to have an opportunity to speak. And while that's great, when it turns a meeting into a marathon and we don't get enough actual business done or it takes so long to get there, and we've got to get to work the next morning and all that kind of thing, I don't think it's unreasonable to set parameters. I just don't know exactly what's
reasonable. Appreciate it.
And when are we going to meet again?
It hasn't been decided.
Okay, so we'll meet again and go over these things again, maybe have new input or more. And then do we decide, or do we make a recommendation?
You make a recommendation to council. The council would approve changes to the rules.
Okay. Just wanting to see how this is going to play out.
I'd like to get something on the agenda or on your calendars for February. I'll have Tammy work with you all on that. And maybe we're ready to go in February and we make some decisions on recommendations and it brings to council in March, or we can take more time. And there may be additional rules you can look at that come up, and you tell me next month to say I really want to look at this rule, and we can address it accordingly.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Right. If there's nothing more, we are adjourned.
Thank you.